My journey from London for my next voyage was, well, mercifully quite short. I had accepted a strange young woman who called herself an adventuress to journey with me to the Empire of Hands. She had interest in being recognized against a rival for uncovering ruins in the monkey's homeland. However, of all the things, as I was leading her onto my ship, as I was getting ready to go from the dock, I was given a message by a courier. Marina had given birth. I had not even known she was pregnant. The time of I'd last seen her, it made me question, was the son truly mine? Was the son my own son, or simply someone she had adopted? Either way, I could not have been more overjoyed. It meant I'd finally had a family of my own. So long after my father took east and my mother retired to her own home. Our boy was, well, a tiny little thing. I wanted him not to fear the burning light the way that I had, the way that I felt in the Grand Geode, or the way that my father had felt when he named me, so I called him Noctis. I prayed that the night would always keep him safe from the Z-beasts that lurked. I told him a story of my adventures, and the boy seemed to laugh and giggle and spurt. He wanted nothing more than to become a sailor. Though he was but a child, I could tell already. He was going to be something amazing. On my way out, I took lunch with the Sisters of Hunter's Keep in jovial exultation. I told my story to Phoebe, and she fed me stories of lovers in the storm and compared them to my own. I have to admit it was a great deal less melancholy this time. I made my way to Venderbite, and my generosity and my adulation for this world was so great that I even paid a sailor's way home. The poor man had become lost amongst the newly dead, and had no way of getting home himself, so I paid the 250 echoes to ferry him back to London, and in return he gave me a small treasure chest, full of a few coins and a few artifacts. It was quite nice. The stowaway I had gained in the Mangrove College I brought to Venderbite. They were to meet their friend there, who I had carried not too long ago. However, I could not lie to them. I grudgingly told them the truth of it. Their friend was dead, or at least as dead as one gets in the Neath. They left without a word. Perhaps they would still find some happiness together, this man and this woman. I do not know if they were lovers, friends, brother and sister. Whatever it was, I wished them well. I headed up to Whiter, and my experience was finally such that I could trade stories with the damnable questioners. I found myself some mutter salt, and talked with my campaigner. I learned of desire, her desire to gain knowledge on the Z. She would say no more than that, but I could see that she was somewhat infirm at dinner. There was more to her than met the eye. Mabe, the young girl who also stole away with us, the daughter of Mabe. She, too, was looking for someone. In Whiter, she pickpocketed a questioner as she was looking for her mother, and gave me another branch of Muttersalt. I used this to talk with my Poisson. He was seeking great and powerful tastes, tastes of the Z, tastes that perhaps he could one day feed to a great, unnamed king. A shiver went down my spine as he told me, but it was still, once again, more adventure. As we got ready to leave, I found a stall that I had become so regular a patron of. Tyrant Moth Antenna, one more time before I left. I made my way to Port Palmerston. I listened in to the Deviless's secrets, and I nearly blacked out. She helped me in, and was kind enough not to kill me for eavesdropping. I think she may have taken a shine to me. Either way, I told her of my discussion with the Brass Embassy. She bade that I take a missive to them, carrying information about demons who might actually be of good advice to apprehend. She was delighted that they were willing to take her back. I think that she was putting all of her eggs in one basket. Mine. Along the way to the Empire of Hands, I stopped at the Chapel of Lights again. I had no real desire to be back with the grinning priest, but my men were hungry, and one cannot take chances on the Z. I ate of their bounty and felt my stomach reject again, but this time not so strongly. Again they offered me a chance to sell out my own men, and again I refused. I headed to Irem with some coffee that I knew I would be able to trade for greater treasures. In Irem, I dreamt deeply. The coffee that I had given to the Irem Council, it helped in my dreaming. Somehow the genial magician I had taken in London was with me in my dreams. Together we gathered a serpent image. He told me of the Finger Kings, the dream snakes which ruled over the realm of the unconscious. He looked down to his hook hand, and I knew who had taken what was most precious to him. That was the one that we would be fighting. Though no easy test, I knew that it was something we both had to do, for the dream was a place we could not escape. Again, Mabe's daughter looked for her mother. Seemed as if she had gone one way and come out another. Irem was not a place for asking questions or finding answers. It was a place of secrets. Nevertheless, we carried on. I found a few catches of the day, you might say, on my way through to the Empire. I gave them to my poissonnier, my chef. He was very much excited to try his feast for the unnamed king, but his skill with the blade was lacking. He bade I take him to the Chelnet to learn from the true monster hunters what it was to wield a blade. Since it was on the way, I stopped off at the Connate. This time I did not shirk away from the iron gates and the gun-toting ships. I made parley with the great leopard who ruled the Connate. Though he was real or not, I only saw his messenger. But the leopard loved coffee, and I had brought enough to appease him. Perhaps I could make friends of the Connate yet. I visited Khan's heart so that my magician might actually make use of the serpent image he'd found. It was quite fortunate that I did. He was able to get information from a scholar, thanks in part to my helping the Connate fight off the Chelonets. We made our way quickly, stopping off only at Khan's shadow, to the southeast, to ask about Mabe's daughter. She was looking for her mother once again. Perhaps we would find her someday. In Chelonet we actually came across the woman, a lady of lilac-colored clothing, covered in blood and looking very much like Mabe's daughter. Feels strange. I knew not her name, even if it was Mabe. She begged that I see the tattoo on my back and my arm. I showed it to her. The eye, it gleamed at them, and they knew that I was part of the great game, the ancient struggle between the surface and the neath for supremacy. Mabe knew what she had to do for some reason, and the daughter came with me, back to London. Along the way, a tiger, of all things, thanked me for caring for its daughter and gave me some supplies. What on earth was happening with these people? Nevertheless, we were in Chelonet, and my poissonnier learned of the great cutting blades that the hunters used. He came back drenched in red, but ready for his feast. I had just had to get him the supplies. We sailed quickly past the Nativity. I had no desire to be anywhere near the sorrow spiders again. We found our way to the Empire of Hands, and I was paid by the delightful adventuress and her clayman, Barnabas. The thing was an unfinished. It was able to think for itself. And yet it seemed to obey the adventuress nonetheless. She would be here, looking for answers, truth, money. Whatever her adventures, I was sure I would have to cross paths with her again. On my way back to London, I carried on south, and found myself lost amongst the sea of statues. Ancient gargantuan creatures, now wrapped in stone, clawing for the surface, with their faces just beneath the waves and their hands jutting out into the sky. There I saw it, King Eater Castle. It was a gigantic arena, with an altar in the middle, ringed by hearts of eldritch horrors, where fools would abandon their future for some eldritch chance. Something was there. I could feel it the very moment I got off my ship. Something that hungered, something ageless beyond time, still asleep, but still hungering. I gathered what information I could for London and left, feeling the very skin crawl on my back as we went. The mechanic chided me, though. We would be back here again someday, if we wanted to complete his great design. I found some relief when I found the city of Varchus. It was close, ironically enough, to King Eater's castle, but it banished all darkness from the Zee. It was a mirrored city, and light was the sacredness of all that they cared for. They would not allow it to be dark. I assisted in a hospital with the aid of my brisk campaigner, and trained with the guards. I even helped a lamplighter drunk off of his ass to keep his job. They called me Thomas, the outsider, but nevertheless, I was welcome there, because I was not willing to simply push my beliefs onto them. A sailor knows you must do what you can to survive. I did not sleep in that city of light and dark, my memory still on King Eater Castle. But then I was told, do not dream in Varchas. When the light faded, I put out to sea again, and finally fell asleep. As the waves my bed, as the ocean tide my blanket.